I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, a troop drawdown delayed in Afghanistan. The latest plan by the commander-in-chief to keep boots on the ground and the Marines in San Diego who are waiting to see what happens next.
Is moving up to middle class still possible, especially for Black Americans? That's the focus of a statewide convention in San Diego this weekend. I'm Peggy Pico with what it takes to be middle class. Then, which stores in San Diego County overcharge their customers the most? And what to do if you've paid more than the listed price on a product.
It's special now.
It's iconic for us now.
A beautiful day at Balboa Park transformed into an unforgettable moment for one San Diego couple. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. He says it's the right thing to do. President Obama delayed the troop drawdown in Afghanistan this morning. He unveiled a new plan to keep thousands of troops in the country, extending America's role in a war lasting longer than 14 years.
I know that many of you have grown weary of this conflict. As you are well aware, I do not support the idea of endless war. And I have repeatedly argued against marching into open-ended military conflicts that do not serve our core security interests. Yet, given what's at stake in Afghanistan and the opportunity for a stable and committed ally that can partner with us in preventing the emergence of future threats, and the fact that we have an international coalition, I am firmly convinced that we should make this extra effort.
The bottom line for the commander-in-chief, Afghan forces are not ready to protect their country without U.S. support on the ground. U.S. troops will continue to focus on counterterrorism and training Afghans. 9,800 troops will remain through next year. The next drawdown to 5,500 troops is set for the year 2017. Now, closer to home, the Marines at Camp Pendleton are waiting to see what role they will play as more troops are needed in Afghanistan. KPBS reporter Steve Walsh explains.
With the president's announcement this morning, that next question becomes, where will the extra troops come from? Britt Albertson joined the Marine Corps in 2014 as the bulk of the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force left Afghanistan as NATO turned over combat operations to the Afghan Army. Albertson would like a tour in Afghanistan.
Well, I totally agree with the president. You know, with the Taliban, ISIS causing trouble in the Middle East, help bring the peace to the local people there. It'd be real nice, and more Marines, if that's what it takes, then that's going to be what we need.
At the moment, the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force has only about 19 Marines in Afghanistan. They are individual fill-ins for other units who are part of the U.S.'s role in training and assisting the Afghan Army. Despite their playing a largely training role, 25 Americans have been killed so far this year in Afghanistan. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
They're not giving up without a fight. SeaWorld says it will challenge the latest ruling to end its killer whale breeding program at its San Diego park. A spokesman says the company will pursue legal action, claiming the California Coastal Commission overstepped its authority when it ruled on the park's plans to expand its whale tanks. The agency agreed to the expansion plans last week with strings attached. The commission says SeaWorld could not breed captive whales to fill them. In a written statement, SeaWorld's president says the commission is charged with managing coastal development and related land use decisions, and this decision went way beyond that. Toughest gun laws in the nation may tighten them even more. Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom introduced a ballot measure today that would make California the only state to require background checks when purchasing ammunition. It also calls for owners to surrender large-capacity magazines. The National Rifle Association fired back, saying Newsom's effort seeks to chip away at Second Amendment rights. Mid-city neighbors demanding changes after a hit-and-run crash killed a teenager. San Diego police now believe multiple drivers were involved with last week's crash. KPBS reporter Megan Burke says neighbors want safety fixes to keep it from happening again.
Classmates of Jonathan Cortez continue to gather at the intersection of 54th and Leah Streets to mourn his death and call for justice. They want the district attorney to charge a City Heights man who turned himself in Monday. Police say that likely would not happen for several weeks until the investigation wraps, but residents in the area have been calling for a different kind of justice there for some time. They want safer streets.
It was an extremely dangerous place for all people to walk, bike, or access transit and drive. It has a highway-style design in an urban area where there's lots of people walking, there's kids trying to get to school, there's parks, there's stores, there's bus stops.
Now, it's unclear why Jonathan ended up in the road before being struck, but friends are pointing to a lack of sidewalks and bike lanes on 54th Street. 38 pedestrians and cyclists were hit on the street between 2004 and 2013. 3 were killed. If you take a look at the area where friends and families have been leaving candles and signs, you'll see a patch of cracked asphalt. KPBS has learned a neighbor asked the city to repair it in 2011. She says the city told her it couldn't because it's not technically a sidewalk. An audit earlier this year found more than 600 miles of roadway with these informal walkways or nothing at all. We've also learned community advocates called on the city in 2013 to install a bike lane on the east side of the road, but the request wasn't met. There are some projects in the pipeline that could bring improvements to the street, but the soonest is a 2025 bus rapid transit line approved by Sandag last week. Meanwhile, police are asking the community to come forward with information on the case. Megan Burks, KPBS News.
Residents dealing with unsafe housing conditions were likely to be treated the same as those complaining of messy yards. A city audit report confirms a KPBS and Voice of San Diego investigation earlier this year. It found renters had little recourse for substandard housing. Auditors found the average response time for high-priority cases like leaking sewage was identical to response times for lower priority cases. They say code enforcement risks repeat offenses by limiting the use of fines and penalties. The department head agreed with the findings and plans to make some changes. Celebrating the builders in San Diego communities, an annual convention is shining a light on those leaders. Peggy Pico has more on how they're helping others transition into a better life.
More than 500 civic leaders and activists at this weekend's convention will be asked if upward mobility into the middle class is still possible for Black people and all Americans. And if so, what are the steps to get there? Joining me with a few ideas on the subject is my guest, Dr. Willie Blair, Vice President of the Black American Political Association of California Southern Region. And Dr. Blair, we've heard a lot about America's shrinking middle class. What is it like today for Black families trying to enter the middle class?
The reason the shrinkage of the middle class is there's a lack of good-paying jobs to pay dignified wages. There are still some other obstacles that the Black community has to overcome. There's still racism in the society that must be dealt with. There are still some other small things that escape the public, like there is tension between the Black community and the Latino community that needs to be worked out. The convention will address that. There will be a dialogue of Latino and African American leaders, two old friends, coming together to see what is more common to those communities as compared to what separates those two communities.
And I want to come back to that, but first I want to ask, how would you define what being middle class is?
Middle class definition could be, you can buy a nice home for yourself and your family, a nice car that you're proud to ride around in, nice looking clothes. Send your children to a school where they can get a quality education. You can take vacations. You have a savings account. And if you have college-age children, you can send them to college and still have a little money left over to save and invest.
Now, you mentioned racial discrimination as a barrier to upward mobility. How so? How does that work?
When you think of racial discrimination, there are still qualified Black people in California who rightfully should obtain some high-paying white-collar jobs as well as blue-collar jobs. And we still must say a lot of those opportunities are being denied because of racial discrimination. We're still trying to become a mature society. We must learn some basic things in this society. If one group moves up, the other group moves up, or there will be a drag on the other groups.
So specifically, though, what needs to happen to improve these economic opportunities? You mentioned perhaps union jobs, things like that.
Yes. Union jobs, because of their very nature, they pay those type of wages that will help you get the things to get into the middle class. As I stated a few seconds ago, when you can buy a home, that home represents almost your business. You can borrow against the equity in that home for college educations, vacations, investment. And when you get a good quality education because you can afford it, that can elevate you even more with a good quality education. And your community is safe. And that raises your self-esteem when you live in a safe community.
Now, I know these are some of the things that are going to be discussed at this weekend's conference. Who are some of the speakers that will be there?
We have State Senator Holly J. Mitchell, who will come to the conference to speak. Assemblywoman Cheryl Brown, who sits on the Veterans Committee, and there will be a veterans workshop. Too many veterans are not taking advantage of their benefits. Their benefits, yes, to help them get into the middle class.
What do you hope this conference will accomplish?
This conference will accomplish that we're building something special here in California. And this weekend's conference will show veterans will move up. We've brought some of the best healthcare practitioners to come to town. You got to have a healthy body to work and to be into the educational stream. We want veterans to learn things. We want healthcare professionals to teach us how to live, a more healthier life. Economic workshop that will take place on how to save, how to invest. All of these things head directly toward the middle class.
All right, Dr. Willie Blair, thank you so much. And I want to let folks know that the Black American Political Association of California Convention in San Diego starts tomorrow and runs through Sunday. We've got more information at kpbs.org.
They're banking on a wet winter because of El Nino, but forecasters say it won't leave a snowy footprint on much of the U.S., including parts California. NOAA issued its winter forecast today, heavily influenced by one of the strongest El Ninos on record. It expects a cooler, wetter winter for the South. California is expected to get more than the usual rain during the critical time its reservoirs usually fill, but there's no guarantee. Forecasters see a milder, warmer winter north of the Mason-Dixon and for all of California and Nevada. Into the weekend for San Diego. 70s along the coast. Some showers possibly lingering for the Inland Valley with 80s, 70s and 60s in the mountains, and back into the 90s for the desert. UC San Diego is joining the push to develop better batteries. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson says advancements in the industry could change our lives.
Energy storage is a critical component of the emerging energy landscape. California regulators are requiring utilities to develop energy storage as a way to make renewable power more useful. UCSD researcher Shirley Meng says consumers are calling for better battery solutions.
People who are driving electric cars, they have to fight for the plug because the driving range is still limited. So we're hoping that when we improve the batteries, that the driving range would be doubled.
Researchers hope to double the capacity of lithium-ion batteries while slashing the price of the technology. UCSD is joining a public-private partnership called CalCharge. That group pushing to develop the next generation of energy storage solutions. Danny Kennedy runs CalCharge. He says battery technology is poised to make a big evolutionary jump.
Energy storage is the next big thing in the new electricity era that we're entering. This century will see a very different way of making and consuming electrons to run our lives and our businesses and everything that's electrified now.
Kennedy says batteries have already propelled the computer revolution away from desktops and onto mobile computing devices like smartphones. New developments will push the technology to larger scales like cars, buildings, and even entire electrical grids. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
A new report says more California seniors are reaching their golden years without sufficient savings and income for retirement. The study found 3 out of 10 seniors do not have enough income to cover their basic needs. Policy leaders and advocates are talking about the new face of retirement and how to improve income security for California seniors. Some are struggling to make ends meet with only Social Security checks.
Make much. It's like, yeah, save, invest your money, blah, 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 blah. What do you invest? You can, for me, it's books or food,
In 2012, legislation called on employers with 5 or more workers to automatically enroll their employees in a state-sponsored retirement account. The state continues to struggle with a teacher shortage. Nearly 8 years after schools laid off thousands of teachers during the Great Recession, those responsible for hiring teachers say college students are not motivated to enter the profession. They blame this trend for low enrollment in teacher credentialing programs, low wages for entry-level positions, and the lack of teacher openings discouraged college students from applying. Now, there are more teaching jobs open, but not enough candidates to fill them.
We don't have enough people going through the credentialing programs at our universities for the positions that we have open.
Education officials have started hiring substitute teachers, creating another shortage. Busted for overcharging, secret shoppers investigated more than 1,000 stores in San Diego County. They found consumers were paying more than what they should. Peggy Pico finds out which stores are the worst offenders.
A Sears store in Escondido and a fashion retailer, H&M in Oceanside, were found to be the worst offenders when it came to overcharging customers at the register. My guest, data specialist Lauren Schroeder with the San Diego Union-Tribune's Watchdog, analyzed the county data and compiled a report on the 10 local stores that overcharged the most. And Lauren, what is overcharging and how does it happen?
Overcharging can be anything that's not the price that you thought you were going to be paying for. And it can happen in a variety of different situations. A lot of the items that you purchase, they can be overcharged at the sale item. Say someone goes into the store system and changes the sale item or changes the price of that item for a certain week that it's on sale. Say they made the sale for 6 days instead of a week, or say that they changed the price of a wrong item. It can be any one of those situations.
Now, how did you analyze this data, and what was your specific focus in the data? Because there's a lot of it.
There was a lot of data. So I collected all of the inspections, the number of inspected items, the number of inspections, and the number of overcharged items, and as well as undercharged items from 2012 to 2014. I got this percentage of overcharged items by taking the number that was overcharged and dividing that by the total number of items inspected.
And how much were customers being overcharged?
So it varies. It can be anything from 1 cent upward to tens to $20. But on average, I found that items were being overcharged by about $8 each year.
Really? Altogether or
Altogether.
per item? I see. The Target in Mission Valley made your top 10 worst offenders list. What are some of the other stores on the list?
Some of the other stores were Sears, and that includes Sears outlet stores, Kathy Jean Shoes, H&M, were just some of the stores that I found.
Are there certain products that tend to have price discrepancies?
I don't think that it's certain products, but definitely sale items. A lot of times they're not marked when you get to the register whether or not they're on sale, and sometimes that's up to the cashier to know what's on sale in the store that day, that week, that month.
Well, I know there's a state regulation that stores are monitored to make sure that their price points are accurate. What happens to a store if they are caught overcharging?
They can be fined anywhere between $100 and $1,000, depending
per incident.
Per incident, depending on how many or how much the error was that they were overcharging on an item.
Now, how are the stores that are in your report, the top local worst offenders, I should say, how are they responding to this report and this data?
They haven't responded, actually. I've heard back from several stores saying that they work to prevent this from happening. They have certain protocols. But for the most part, I haven't heard back from a lot of the stores that I've reached out to.
What should consumers actually do if they say, listen, I noticed on my receipt I was overcharged?
That's the hard part, because I've spoken with retail analysts and the supervisor for the county inspectors, and there really isn't an easy way. It's when you're buying 100 items, it's very hard to memorize the price of all 100 items when you get up to the register. The main thing that they suggested was, if you have the slightest idea that you might be getting overcharged on a certain item, when you see it rung up or when you get your receipt, is to say something in the store. Have the cashier check the price, have the manager check the price, so that, the last thing you want is to get home and find out that you were overcharged and there's not a lot you can do.
Once you do, you can call the county office. There is a complaint number or email you can send in. Yeah, so they can,
consumers can file a complaint with the county. Typically, the county says to file a complaint if you are unable to resolve the issue with the store.
And why is price accuracy important?
It's important. Well, I think it's important because we don't always check our receipts. I, for one, didn't before doing this project. And that kind of price error can add up over time.
And what kind of feedback are you getting from your report?
I've been getting a lot of feedback from readers of the story. Some stores have reached out after the story was published, and a lot of people saying, oh, I was overcharged by this store, you should look into them, or you should check out this one store in the city because I've had issues with them several times.
Definitely hit a nerve. It sounds like San Diego Union Tribune's Lauren Schroeder. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm Gwen Eiffel. On the next News Hour, we get rare access to a maximum security jail and a unique pilot program trying to stop the revolving prison door. That's Thursday on the PBS News Hour.
Setting the mood for love in Balboa Park, Ken Kramer shows us how music and dancing set the stage for a romantic surprise.
The Balboa Park we know today began with the 1915 Panama, California Exposition. We're marking the 100th anniversary of this World's Fair by sharing your special moments and memories of Balboa Park. Through the years, the park has been a place where San Diegans mark life's big moments. One of those moments, marriage proposals. KPBS's Brooke Ruth spoke to a Chula Vista couple about their unique proposal in the park. We bring you their story in their own words.
I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Allison.
And this is where we got engaged. So basically what I wanted to do was I wanted to propose to Allison in a special way, and I kind of figured that I wanted a really good backdrop. I chose Balboa Park just because the botanical garden is really beautiful, and I ended up hiring a flash mob, and I rehearsed with them. So the day comes where I'm going to propose to her, and we show up, and I've got this very elaborate plan to walk her around a specific path because I invited friends and family. You know, it was a big day. I invited friends and family to come see, and they were hiding all over the area. And so we follow the path, and she's not really having it.
I was so hungry.
Yeah, she's hungry, and needless to say, we kind of got to this area well before we were supposed to get here. Fortunately, the dance team was already here. They started the music as soon as they saw us walking down this path. And she's like, hey, that's pretty cool. We should watch. I was like, yeah, we should totally watch. We should watch. So we're standing back here. We're watching them. They start dancing. Actually, there's a crowd that starts building behind them.
I was holding him and I felt his heart pick up right before he ran out there, and it kind of dawned on me, and then it happened.
I perform, I do my shindig, and then I think at this point, see, she's starting to get teary-eyed because at this point is when she realizes, oh, this is for me. This is actually about me.
When he started dancing, I think I just blacked out some. I was thinking so much about what was going on, and I was so nervous too, just because I don't like being center of attention usually.
Then at the very end of the dance, I walk up to her and I get down on one knee and I bring out the ring. Will you marry me?
I said yes.
It wasn't that many months after that we came back here for December nights, and it's kind of nostalgic, even when you know there were so many people standing around here, because it's
special now.
It's iconic for us now because this is where we got engaged.
Jonathan and Allison are getting married on November 14th. To share your Balboa Park memories and to see other memories shared with KPBS, visit kpbs.org/memories.
Here's a look at what we are working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, classic rides coveted by California fans. We're talking about the kind of car made by Ford 100 years ago. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.